Hey guys, welcome back to Wake Up Podcast. I'm Keitaro.
I'm Alec.
Hi.
What's funny?
I don't know, you started laughing.
Daniel did?
I don't know.
Daniel, lock in. Alright,
this-
we're redoing.
No,
I'm good now. I got it.
This is it. This is the podcast now. We're not redoing. You had your
Yeah.
chance. We're now live.
I'm
Let's go.
Dutch.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Jacob.
Alright, so we're gonna start it off with Jacob giving his testimony, kind of giving a rundown of how he became a Christian and why he's here now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's go.
My name's Jacob. I'm 28 years old, married, and I've been married to my wife now for a little over a year. We dated for about 3.5, almost 4 years before we got married. And my testimony kind of begins back when I was a kid. I was very religious growing up. My parents had us in church every week. We were involved with our youth group and doing a lot of like missionary work and like traveling around a lot with our church. So it was a lot of fun. We got to be super involved. A lot of my friends were active in the church too. We were always going together. It was like always Wednesday nights. It was really fun. And met a lot of my good friends there. Like they were like really important to me because they also had the same walk of faith and like the relationship with Christ that I had. So I really admired all those friendships. And yeah, I think I, for the most part in high school, stuck with my faith, and like that's kind of probably what kept me out of a lot of trouble. I still got in a little bit of trouble and like did things I wasn't supposed to be doing. But ultimately, I felt like because of my faith, I was more, as the kids would say, locked in during that time period. But yeah, I think the big thing for me was like growing up, having those people in my life that like played that role was really important for me, of like centering Christ in their life and making sure that that was like the number one focus. And yeah, I mean that's kind of like the high level. Would you want like a little bit more detail or?
Like what have been kind of like challenges, I guess, especially where your faith have been kind of tested.
Like that moment, like when you got saved and like afterwards, like
Right,
seeing like
right.
from like that heavenly perspective compared to that worldly perspective, or was it like easier to change? Like it's just like an automatic shift.
I feel like I shared this with you, Keitaro, at one of our Connect groups. It was
Yeah.
like probably losing my best friend, who I
Right.
found at church. We grew up together. We were like in third grade, just like best friends. We hit it off, and we were hanging out like every day during the summer, and we were super close. And about 3 years ago, he took his own life, and I think that's where I really started to question faith and God and everything, because like we were so close, we had such a strong walk in faith. He was really religious too, and I just really couldn't grasp like how someone could do that was like really strong in their faith. And I think I grappled with that, and then that's where my faith became pretty rocky for a little while. I just kind of lost my way, and I think it's pretty typical for all of us to kind of experience things where we will deter off the path we're supposed to be on. And that's like the beauty in God and like our relationship with Christ, and the people that help us veer back into that path is like there's people in my life like Connor who have like gotten me really aligned in what I'm trying to do, and I really am like appreciative of those people because they just pour into me and enable me to succeed in my environment. But yeah, I think that was like the most defining moment. I feel like looking back, that's when I really like challenged everything and became like, I think I like quoted myself as like being very agnostic. Like I didn't deny that God wasn't real, but I also like didn't acknowledge that there was proof that he was real. Like you even need the proof though, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely that point.
Yeah, and like something on that you helped me a lot, because when that happened, I was like 2 weeks into Connect. I was just getting into Christianity, and I think my question was like, how could God let this happen to someone if God is so good? Yeah. Or I had a really hard time, kind of what Jacob went through. I kind of had that same experience, but for me, there was just like a hard time forgiving myself more than anyone. Just like when that happens, especially, it's just like, I feel like it always goes back to what could I have done better, or what could I have done in the past to prevent it. And I think something that you kind of helped me through was like, first of all, it's not your burden to carry. And, you got to forgive yourself, and you got to know that Jesus forgives you, I feel like. So what would be your advice to someone that's, going through a hard time like I was, and kind of, was there a lot of like self-hatred, I guess, like when that happened, or was there anything that you were like, I could have changed that in a way?
Yeah, you wanna try to make every plausible explanation as to like why someone would do that, or how you can overcome like the mental load that someone experiences when you go through something like that. I think the big thing that I really struggle with was like, I've also been in that position where like I'm super struck with like a lot of like despair and like there's no way out. And that it's very common for especially men to experience that, because we're not enabled to like seek out support for that and like be guided as much as we should be. And I think that's a big part of like why Christ is so important, is like you have that relationship always there for you, and like it's without being said, right? It's available for you, it's there. You have scripture, you have your pastors, you have your friends, you have your loved ones, family, right? But it's like Christ will never falter kind of thing. So,
Yeah, like on that, like I think it's so important, like to whoever who's listening, like just check up on those people that you haven't in a while, like because you may think they're doing fine, but secretly they may be going through the hardest time of their life. And just taking time out of your day to send a text out is just so important, and being like, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? I've been thinking about you. Because that really makes a difference at the end of the day. And yeah, it's just power of that.
Like Jesus was someone in the Bible who had compassion on the brokenhearted, and like you see like him going to those and then coming back weeping, but they actually are weeping for joy because they just found the Son, they just found the well, they just found like the Savior. And in that same sense, like we're called to make disciples of people, we're called to go in the world, and like we're made in the image of God. So if you see someone struggling, if you see someone in despair, and you see someone crying, you don't have to know him, but just be that image of God that you have, and like go and be that person that shows compassion and show care for them. And if you're listening, that can be you guys too.
For sure.
Like it's not just like one special called person. No, you're all are called to that. Totally.
You wanna add anything?
I don't really have anything to add. You guys hit points.
Yeah.
I just had like another question for Jacob.
No.
Sure.
Was there like a point, or maybe like a season, or kind of a part of an area of time where because you were raised in the church your whole life, was there a time where kind of you felt your faith become yours rather than your parents or people around you, where that kind of like where that calling went from other people's, and then you accepted it for your own?
That's a great question. I think like for me, the big one was like, it was like, it felt like my parents' faith for a long time, and I was like, it was a prescription, like, hey, you have to take this, you have to go, you have to be there. I think what happened for me when it clicked was when I started to seek out discipleship from leaders that were giving me an understanding of my faith and allowing me to question things and try to seek to understand a deeper level of like what it means to be a believer, what it means to like have a relationship with Christ and like walk that path. And when I found that and I was able to nurture that relationship and build it, I was like, oh, this is like really meant for me, not just like this is what my parents want me to do. Does that make sense? Like it was because of the leaders that I was surrounded by with and the people that were so open and welcoming to those conversations and being that figure that I needed at that point in my life to really enable me to be like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Jacob, like what got you into serving in youth? In high school especially. So if you didn't know, Jacob serves in our church's high school, and he's, first time I met him, I think we were playing basketball or something, like
Yeah.
tackled some random kid. He's like being really physical. I'm like, who is this new guy? I'm just like, and then we had to connect, and Jacob opened up about his testimony and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, he can get that deep. I remember going home with Dutch and his twin James on the car ride home. I'm like, wow, I did not know that he could go that deep and like actually connect with people. I thought he was just for some fun. But like, what kind of got you into that youth?
Yeah, no, it literally, you said it, right? Like, I'll answer that question, but I think, like, for me, the most important thing about, like, life in general is, like, just to have fun and not take it so seriously, and, like, that's why I love, like, screwing around with you guys, and, like, just, like, messing around, having fun, and, like, just enjoying the aspect of like the fact that life is way too short to take it seriously, and like Daniel's laughing right now, but like I know why. And it's cute because like he should be able to laugh, he should have fun, and I think it's kind of funny, but like when I need to lock in, I can't. Like I know how to turn it on and turn it off. I think that's one thing that like all y'all can start to practice more and more, especially as kids, is like, how can I have a lot of fun, how can I enjoy my life, be a kid, because like you guys are gonna grow up really soon and you're gonna have bills, you're gonna have rent, you're gonna have a lot of responsibilities, and you just want to enjoy now and enjoy your life and the relationships you have with people, because life gets real very fast. And what I wish that I would have done is just done more of what I'm doing now as a 28-year-old, except did it when I was 15 or 16, right? But like now I'm doing that and having that ability to like turn it on and off, knowing how to do that in situations where you're going to be tested in life, where things happen, whether it's at school or work or a relationship or any of those things at church, you have to be able to know how to respond in those situations and act in authority, right? Speak a holy tongue and like work with what you have. Obviously, I'm not going to expect you guys to like handle every situation perfectly, but it's that attempt and effort that you guys can make that will propel you forward. Now, to answer your question, I had a lot of fun in my youth growing up with our church, and they did a fantastic job of like harboring a really amazing atmosphere where like everyone wanted to be there, and they were always doing like cool events, taking us places, like they were just pouring into us constantly, and I didn't want to be anywhere else on like a Wednesday night. You know what I mean? Like nothing else was more fun or like exciting than to go do that, see all my friends that were like involved, and then also seek out that discipleship from my leaders that like I was desperately needing. So now it's like I'm in the position where I'm their age when they were doing that for me, and I'm like, well, now I have to take that responsibility.
So kind of like giving back.
For sure. Yeah, definitely giving back. Definitely like paying forward what was given to me when I was your guys' age. Yeah.
One thing I want to say is like dude, totally like you like have the most fun outside of church, but as soon as we get in, you do lock in. Like once the like I've came to you for a serious conversation, I was like, shoot, like is this the right guy? Like, because I've never talked to you before, and I was like, all I've seen is you kind of like goof off. So I was like, all right, shoot. But I talked to you. I was like, dude, this guy gave me some like the best advice I've ever heard in my life. Yeah,
and like that's the thing. I think I become more approachable when people see me having fun and see that I'm not like taking everything so seriously and like trying so hard, because I don't want to come off that way, because when I was your guys' age and I saw someone like that, I avoided them. Like I didn't feel like I could go to that person. And I realize now that I'm in this position, it's like y'all should just be able to realize like I'm here, I can like have fun, but then like how you said, if you need that moment of like, hey, like I need some advice, I really need to like seek to understand the situation, I can do that.
And I think that's one thing you do so great, is because like a lot of kids come from school, have a tough day, they don't want to go to church and just sit there the whole time, and like kind of like they want to have fun too. And I think that's one thing you do so amazingly, is before like we'll play basketball and we'll have fun, and like like last Sunday, like these little kids on e-bikes came running around, and that was the most funny thing I've seen in a minute. Just 3 big dudes chasing after 8-year-olds on e-bikes. It was hilarious.
They were fine with it though. They were fine with it.
No, they were horsing around.
They came back and
they did wheelies. It was sick.
Yeah. But I think something that like you kind of helped me kind of understand is like, you know, you can still live in faith and still have fun. I think they're just like a negative like thing. Like if you're Christian, you got to be locked in all the time. You can't have fun. Just you got to read the Bible. And like it's like no. Like I think one of our leaders said it the other day. Christians should be the most fun people in the world, right?
Yeah, dude, because you're saved.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like you don't have to go drink. You don't have to do drugs to have fun or like be in like the environment of like a party setting to have fun. No, like you can, you know, just hang out with people and just have like relational equity with them.
And then like drugs also, like people have that, then they feel that down after, so they chase it again. And that's like why it becomes so addictive. But the thing is, like, when you're saved by Jesus, it doesn't go. You're just always like going up and up and up and up.
And that's going back to that story. I forgot what chapter and stuff, but the woman at the well, like
the Bible says.
Yeah. But like, oh jeez, what is it? I'm trying to think.
Kenan, look that up.
Our amazing
production guy, fact checker,
amazing editor / production guy, Kenan will
follow his fan page.
Kenan fan page on Instagram.
The fan page fell off.
It already died?
The woman at the well is John 4.
John 4. Okay, let me look that up. Let me look that up real quick. John.
Yeah, fan page fell off.
4.
What can you do?
Jogn.
Definitely not how you.
We all do.
She says, "Sir, you have nothing to draw." Oh my God, it zoomed in. Oh Lord,
No,
1 second. Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that water? Where do you get that living water? And that's her talking to Jesus, and Jesus is saying, "Drink from the well. You're gonna be thirsty again. But if you drink from me, the Father, you're never gonna be thirsty again." And what I'm trying to get at is like, drugs are a temporary high, a temporary pleasure, but once you have Jesus in your life, you're gonna have those highs and lows, but you're always gonna be rock solid with God.
And this is like drink from him. It doesn't mean like legit drink from no, like drinking from him is like drawing close to him. It's like a relationship. Like for using a relationship, like you're like if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you by doing that like drinking with them is like drinking from them is like spending time with them, like talking with them, like and getting to know him. In the same sense, like we're meant to drink from him by getting to know him, reading the Bible with him, and that's when like those times can become like that's when you lock in.
Yeah.
That's when you lock in.
And then one thing I have to add on to that is like I don't know, like I'm sure you guys can all like attest to this, but like like the past week I've kind of been like far from God and like life has just been like so like crappy. But once I get back into that word, instead of listening to rap, I listen to worship. Life just feels so much better. And even I have all these challenges, I still have like a great outlook. And I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, God's got me.
Right.
I think it's just like sometimes with me, it's just like when things are going good, when things are good in my life, I kind of tend to like, you know, enjoy life. And like sometimes I forget to read the Bible or pray as much as I should be doing. And then boom, something happens. And then I'm like, wow, like I need God back in my life. It's just like when I hit rock bottom again, it's like I'm going back to God, but I should, you know, still be staying with God the whole time. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be like this up and down journey that going on. And I think
a lot of people need to realize like he never leaves you. Like it's like his presence is always there. It's just the fact that people aren't aware of it.
Yeah, that's facts.
And this is kind of off topic, but you said you're married. I know like a lot of us are like getting into dating and like talking to girls. So, like what did you and your wife do like early on like that, like help build a strong relationship?
That's a good question.
Like tips for us that we should be doing right now.
I was always I had like technically I had like 3 rules for like dating, like for finding my partner. And the first one was like first and foremost has to be Christian, like has to like have a faith and like a relationship with God. Second one was like she has to work out. Like that's minimum requirement, has to value fitness the same way I do, because I feel so strongly that there's a correlation between fitness and faith that most people overlook, because the discipline and the requirement that follows a strict fitness routine and like accomplishing your goals that way is so much more apparent when you tie it in with faith and like what that means for faith and how you can treat faith the same way. And then the third one was like I wanted her to be my friend first. Like, I didn't want her to just be like someone I was like wanting to just like be with, or like wanted to like just like pursue without the right intention. So we were friends for like 6 months before we even started dating. Like, it just started out as like platonic friendship. Like, we'd talk a lot, and those were like my requirements, and like she definitely like meets them all. And I think like as you guys are dating around and like talking to girls, my biggest regret was just like not waiting to really like understand myself and like my relationship with Christ, and like focus on that first, because at the end of the day, like, there's gonna be women everywhere for the rest of your life. Like, finding the right person that's gonna actually like lock in.
Sorry,
yeah.
This could go in our blooper.
I mean, yeah, facts. I think like the big thing is like ultimately like at your guys' age, girls are just a distraction from like what you guys should be focusing on, because you guys can pour into fitness, you can pour into your schoolwork, you can pour into your relationship with Christ, or school or athletics, right? Like, girls for you guys it's just, I don't want you guys to get distracted. I don't want you to lose focus. And if you feel like you can manage that, then more power to you. But like, the reality of it is like, just stay focused on those things, because there's a lot of temptation, and that's not worth sacrificing for if you can pour yourself into things that are going to better you and really help you grow. Because like, if I would have ended up with, you know, the girl I dated in high school versus my wife today, like, I'd be a completely different person. I first wouldn't be here in California talking with you guys. Like, I'd have a completely different life. And because I waited to really like pursue the person that fit me the best, like, I ended up with the best life. Right. Like, I'm more close to God than I ever have before because of my wife. And like, I owe that to her. And like, she has made me the better version of myself. And like, I feel like looking back at all my past relationships, none of the girls I dated would have done that. So like, it's that level of like accountability and authority that you want to seek out in a partner, that like pushes you to seek your relationship with God and like cement that and like be stronger because of it, that I just never experienced until I found her. Yeah.
Would you want to explain the triangle thing? You know what I'm talking about, the race?
What's the triangle thing?
Like, do you mean the pyramid?
Like, the pyramid.
What's
thing
the pyramid?
God's first husband.
Oh
wife,
no, yeah,
children.
I just talked to Connor about this. It's like God, your wife, your work, or sorry, God, your wife, your family, work, and then ministry. No, I skipped one. God, wife, work, ministry. Is that it?
It's friend.
I don't know. The one I know is like the family tree. Is that God's the head, and then the husband comes, and then the wife, and then the children. That's
I'm talking about the stuff to prioritize,
like
in your life, like, because I talked to Connor today about it, and just like the current state of like where I'm at, and he's like, yeah, you gotta focus more on your wife and like focus on like your relationship with God, because it's been lagging with a lot of the stuff that's been going on.
One thing I wanted to ask is, since you're married, how do you lead your wife to Christ, and how does your wife lead you to Christ?
Oh no,
How do you guys help each other?
She led me for sure. She was a Catholic growing up, so like very strict faith. We tried to find a couple churches when we moved back here. We went to a couple churches when we were up in Oregon, and they just didn't click for us. And so it was hard. Like, God definitely pointed us in the direction that we're in now, and that was just through multiple people that like lined that up and made it possible. But yeah, sorry, I forgot. What was the question?
How do you lead your wife to Christ, and how does your wife lead you to Christ? Like, how do you help each other out? And then how are you like a godly husband to your wife?
Oh, it's a constant day-to-day thing. Like, there's so much you have to be mindful of, and like what you can do to be like on top of everything. I think like that's the thing I'm still learning and practicing, is like how to master that. So I don't even feel like I know how to do it yet, right? Like, I'm still in the process of trial and error, and like what works, what doesn't. Especially like starting a new career and like being super involved with you guys. Like, I think for me, it's just mostly about striking a balance that I just need to have better. she just pushes me to read scripture every day and to really like pray and like be active with you guys. And so that's always top priority. And then for me to her, it's like this similar, like for her to pray a lot, which she does. And then to like be very vocal about when God is speaking through her and like to share that with me, because she has like a lot of like God stories that are very powerful.
You guys are one now, so
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
awesome.
Daniel, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your challenges being a Christian? What do you struggle with, kind of?
Can you get a little bit more specific?
Yeah,
What's something that challenges your faith?
Okay, something that challenges my faith. I feel like being around friends. I feel like specifically I have a lot of non-Christian friends. And it's really interesting because I know a lot of them are not Catholic. A lot of them they go to Catholic schools and they know about Jesus, but they're not Christian in any way, or a lot of them just straight up don't care. And I think what's interesting is I'm able to talk to them about Jesus a lot. Like a lot of them, one of my close friends that I've been coming with, he's came up to me and he's asked me about Jesus, and he's gone to Catholic schools his whole life. He believes that God exists, but he doesn't believe anything in it. And then I started talking to him and explaining to him a little bit more about Jesus and really that it's not just God kind of created everything, but there's actually a relationship that we can have with him. And I was able to really help him out through that, and still just continuing to talk to him. And then, so I feel like just being able to talk to my friends about that. So first off, the challenge would be being around people who aren't Christian, and then challenging my faith and me trying to live up to the example that I should be. And then a blessing through that would just being able to reach out to them and spread the gospel.
Right. Which, I think we all attest to this. Going to public school, I feel like, especially the hard thing is, we have a bunch of friends that are non-believers. And, the worst thing we want to do is force religion or force Christianity upon them, because that'll just push them farther, right?
Totally.
The only thing we can do is sow the seed. Let them know of God, share the gospel, like Daniel said, but still being respectful and not really be like, you have to be Christian, you know what I'm saying?
That's where I really believe is being able to live your life in a way that people know that you're Christian and know that you are a good resource. Where the way that kid, I didn't mention it, I've had it before, but he came up to me and started asking me questions about Christ, and I've had a few other kids do that. So it's just being able to live your life and lead in an example that way.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest quotes I heard was we don't change people, Jesus does.
Right.
We can be used as the vessel, to speak about him and share about him, but it's actually Jesus and the Holy Spirit does the turning in, and that's probably why your friend came up and asked you a question, because you mentioned something to him about Jesus and it was stirring in his spirit for so long, and then he's like, I just have to ask.
Yeah.
Jacob, do you know anyone who is just a close friend of yours that just doesn't accept Jesus?
I mean, I have a friend that it's not that he doesn't accept Jesus, he even knows he needs to get back to church and do that. I think that's where I feel like a lot of people are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Our school also they're like, I know I need to go to church.
Right.
Yeah.
I should go to church.
That line of I really need to get back into the routine and going to church. I think that I hear so often, and I think that alone is a good sign that people are rekindling that hunger of what does this mean to me? What can I get out of it? What is there for me? And I think that's where y'all really have this thing down of being able to cultivate that relationship where these people can approach you and seek that out, because if they're expressing that, then the door is already open. Now it's about letting them in.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a big part of that too is and I really strongly believe in this, is separating your relationship with God from your church.
Very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because if your relationship with God is only on Sundays or when you go to church or when you're in that environment, what happens the rest of the week is up to you.
Right.
And that's something where even if you don't go to church, you're able to remain and stay strong with God. And that's where people will come up to you and they'll speak to you just because of how they can see
So
you.
good.
For sure.
Come on,
Yeah,
that's so
that's
good.
a good point.
I think,
that kind of reminds me of like practicing. Like if you play a sport and you only practice 2 times a week, you're not going to be good.
Yeah,
at
what
the
are you going to
sport.
expect to get out of it?
So you practice every day, you're going to be one of the
Right.
best. Like if you in your relationship with
Yeah.
God, you're going to be closer with God. You
Well,
know?
if you practice only with your team
Yeah.
versus practicing
Yeah,
solo.
it's
Right.
not, you're not going to have a very good.
Yeah, something Daniel said that kind of relates to me actually. It's like I started going to church last summer because Dutch, we started with Bible study, and then one day he was like, "You want to go to church?" And I was like, "Yeah." Had so much fun, but Dutch would always take me, right? So I kind of made like, let's still go, but I made like church and like God the same thing. I feel like, and I think when I realized that like, I need to separate God from the church, especially because my parents are pretty anti-religious, so they don't want me going to church. So there was a time and period where I couldn't go to church for some time, and I was very upset about it. But I called my leaders, I called my good friends, and they were like, "Well, you don't have to go to church to practice your faith." You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can still live a Christ way, even without church.
Yeah.
And I think there's a song out there, Monday Morning Faith, greatest song in the world. But it just talks about how you should live with Jesus Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Yep, Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's huge.
One thing I want to add on to that is I kind of have the opposite perspective. Like when I started getting into Jesus, it was kind of just a solo thing. I think it really is important to reach out and make disciples though, because honestly, like I had a lot of questions, and like I wouldn't have been able to answer those questions without these dudes, my friends, Nate, you. I mean, like it's really important to also get people around you with the same faith.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's why church is important also, because like we're saying like yes, like don't make your faith like with the church in some sense, like but like the church is like need for that discipleship or like for that development with your relationship with Jesus, and also like just like seeking help, because if you're doing it solo and something like happens and you want someone to talk to, and you talk to your friend who's maybe not Christian, it's gonna be very different than you talk to your friend who believes in Jesus, because they have two different perspectives of life.
The exact problem I fell into.
Yeah, and also on the point too is just like, no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
If you live in this world, you are imperfect. No church is perfect because it is ran by humans. No Christians are perfect. The only thing perfect is God, right? So I feel like there's a bunch of people, kind of happened to me today about like with a different group of people, but I could see why people stay away from Christianity because of one bad experience with Christians. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that happens a lot.
Right, and I bet there's someone watching right now that knows someone who's a Christian or something, that you had a bad encounterment, and you kind of judge that encounterment with like Christians as a whole, and be like, every single Christian is they hate these type of people, which it's not true, right? And so it's so bad to just like stereotype and like stuff like that.
I also think that's one like thing with the church. Also, like a lot of people don't go to church because they had one bad experience at a church. But the thing is that if there's a bad experience at the church, it's not because of God. It's because there's the people. Like, there's something that happened there. But people forget that church is a place where you're meant to worship God. It's like not like just like a social hour. It's not like that. No, it's like meant for worshiping Him.
Good.
One thing I wanted to touch on is you're very into fitness, right? So so fitness, you have to be very self-disciplined. So that must lead into your self-discipline with your relationship with Christ, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So is that like the whole reason why you started fitness?
I think for me, I started fitness mostly because it was a way to tackle a lot of the mental problems that I was facing in my life, and it was a way to just shut off the noise and just like focus on something that I can push myself to achieve and to be proud of that achievement. And then I found that there was a similar experience that you can have with Christ, and like being devoted to Scripture and working through your life's problems there as well, through that relationship. But that's why I said earlier that like the relationship, the symbiotic pull between the two is so strong. Like so many people I work out with, so many people that I know like have a super strong faith as well, and are like always talking to me about God as well, and it's like really cool to see that.
And then what's the most important thing to you in your faith?
Oh, that's tough. I feel like the first thing that came to mind is forgiveness. I feel like for me, like as hard as I try to be like good in all intentions and try to be focused on making the right choices, doing the right things, like obviously I still mess up, and I do things.
Forgiving yourself than others.
For sure. Yeah, forgiving myself for my mistakes, and like understanding that, like as you guys are saying, like we are just human, like we will sin, we will mess up, but understanding that like I am able to forgive myself for that too.
And like on forgiveness, like I think my like biggest thing with Christianity, because I'm new, I think, is like with forgiveness, it's like my mom asked me this other day and I kind of stumbled upon, was like, my mom was like, if someone were to kill me, would you fully be able to forgive them? Because in Christianity, forgiveness is like a huge thing, right? God forgave us for everything basically, but let's say, like, I don't want to put your wife as an example, but if someone killed your wife, would you fully be able to forgive them?
I would have to. Yeah. Because, like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the clips, too, like, on YouTube where, like, something happens and, like, this devoted Christian, like, something terrible happened to the family, is, like, forgives them and understands, like, that wasn't the intention. And, like, that moment is, like, always where those people, like, the switch happens. Like, they realize that, like, Christ is real. And, like, the fact that someone can do something like that, but then be forgiven, like, that power, like, within someone to do that is so much deeper than just what we can will.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
We get asked that a lot at school.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's definitely
the questions we get at school. Some of them
like it's like.
I feel like that doesn't only make such a big impact on someone else's life, but once you choose to forgive someone, that makes such a huge stride forward in your life too.
And maybe that could like kind of like change the mind of someone who like kills them, and them acting out of like rage or something like that. Because on the cross, when Jesus was dying, there's someone to their right who was basically probably lived a sinful life, and at the end they both did right, two thieves, and one on the left was kind of making fun of Jesus and being like, and then the right kind of the guy on the right accepted Jesus in the end, and God was like, yeah. You want to end with the verse of the day?
All right, we got the verse of the day. Today we are going to be doing Matthew 6:7. And when you pray, do not use meaningless repetition as the Gentiles do, for they think they will be heard because of their many words.
So good. Well, that's a wrap for the podcast today. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at wakeup_podcast, and on Instagram at faithclubrb. Well, Jacob, thank you so much. Follow Jacob Davis on Instagram too, guys.
Let's go, baby.